good morning. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching the F&O Show on BloombergQuint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I'm Navneet. Saluja D'Souza.
Good morning, Navneet. I'm Achal. Let's start by taking a look at the headlines. Indian markets extend their losses for the second day. The Nifty trades around 12,050. Auto and metal stocks are leading losses while the volatility index rises. Open interest is rising in SAIL and Tata Steel towards fresh shorts. And speaking of Tata Steel, it is the top loser on the Nifty today after a weak third quarter performance. And SAIL trades with losses after PTI reports that the government may sell 5% stake in the company through an offer for sale.
All right, those are your top headlines at this hour. Let's quickly tell you what's happening with the markets. It's second straight day of losses coming in for the Indian equities. But remember, last week was good considering the rebound that we saw after the carnage seen on the budget day. And today's fall is primarily got to do with the global factors as well. The death toll due to coronavirus crossing the mark of 900 is something which has spooked the equities as well. So Nifty's down about 75 points, now inching very closer to that psychological mark of 12,000. Of course, for the day, 12,000 remains crucial. But over a period of time, if we were to decline further, I think 100-day moving average will be in focus, which is somewhere about 11,878. Sensex down over 200 points. Nifty Bank also correcting about 0.5%. And it's just not about the frontline equities. I think the selling pressure has been witnessed across the board. So you've even got the broader markets, mid-cap as well as the small-cap indices, which have corrected sharply in trade. The market breadth is not looking all that good. It is in favor of the declines. As you can see on your screen, the ratio seems to be almost 1:2. And with the fall that we've seen, the volatility index has inched higher this morning. So India VIX is up about 3%. And Agam highlighted in the headlines that it is the metals and the auto pack which is declining. So these are your major sectoral losers also, so to say, as of now. Nifty metals index has seen correction of about 2% and autos also correcting nearly about 1.5%. Very quickly then, what levels you should watch out then for this weekly expiry, which is scheduled on Thursday. In terms of distribution, we've been highlighting it's the 12,000 put and the 12,200 call, which is sitting with maximum open interest. But for the time being, 12,100 call today has seen aggressive writing in just 45 minutes of trade. You've seen almost 13 lakh shares being written there. And as of now, no unwinding has come in on the 12,000 put. So some ray of hope. Let's see whether that mark gets breached or not. Till now, almost a lakh or lakh and a half shares have been added there. So I think first support will be at the 12,000. And then, of course, the markets will be looking at the 100 DMA.
Absolutely. Of course, some important levels to keep an eye on. But let's talk about stocks, which will also be in focus in today's day of trade. And let's pull up that list of world stocks which are seeing a surge in open interest. We've already spoken about SAIL and Tata Steel, but Just Dial is the other one, which is down 4%. And, well, once again, on the verge of losing out on the 500 rupee per share mark. Divi's Laboratories and Escorts are among the others which are advancing only marginally. You can't necessarily call that as a bout of buying at this point in time just yet. Let's talk about stocks which are seeing unwinding in open interest, and there isn't much today except for something like a Mindtree, and that's clearly a case of longs and winding, considering we have seen so much gain in Mindtree of late. But of course, we'll continue to keep a track on some of these names as we move into trade today.
Yeah, a lot of stocks to keep an eye on. And on the show today, we will be discussing such three stocks, and all of them are result reaction. So Nifty counter, UPL has had a strong opening, and that's owing to operationally very strong numbers coming in from the company. In fact, CLSA has also increased the price to 770 from 720. Tata Steel, on the other hand, has fallen below the 50 DMA. Of course, the European operations, and even on consolidated basis, I guess the earnings disappointed the street. And you've got MGL, which has been an outperformer of the recent past. I think the earnings fell below street expectations, so the stock has seen somewhat of correction in the opening trade.
All right, there you have it. Well, on that note, it's time to get in our experts for today. But before that, here's a reminder, if you have any queries regarding futures and options markets, you can call us on 022-454-04141. And of course, write to us on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube with the AskPQ hashtag. Joining us today, we have Navneet Daga of Yes Securities and Amar Singh of Angel Broking joining us on the show. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for taking the time out. Navneet, let's start with you. Where do we go from here when it comes to the benchmark indices? We're looking at a little bit of a pause for a couple of sessions now. What's the way forward?
Well, good morning. Look, what we have seen is a kind of a last week or so we can be all over the place and kind of a roller coaster ride for the market, and now it's time for a more of a consolidation for the market, whereby the participants will look for more focused on, rather than being index, it's more focused on the stock specific side. And to my understanding, it's looking like the kind of a build up and the kind of an FIS stance that I have seen in the last couple of days is being normally. We have seen a narrow build-up on the option side at 12,200 and 12,100 also being written on the upside, and it's on the lower side also we got a lot of protection at 11,900 range. So it doesn't look like that we are breaking above that kind of a range that easily, and we can see a lot of sector churning happening within the index, and then traders should look to focus on that on the individual stock specific side. For the Nifty, I believe somewhere near to 11,950 odd levels likely to take a immediate support zone at that level, and until unless we started to break about 12,100, no meaningful decisive long should be created, at least on the index side.
Okay, so that's Navneet's view coming in on the index. And remember, for Nifty futures, they still trade at a discount, and that's the trend we've been witnessing since the budget day. And just for a brief period, I guess intraday last week, you did see the futures going into premium, but the closing has been at a discount. Amar Singh, good morning to you. Do you use these corrections as an opportunity to create any long position, or you would wait by for a certain level?
Yeah, looking at the way the index has been trading over the last couple of days, Friday and today, clearly shows that yes, there is some bout of selling pressure, because as we had spoken earlier also last week, that at 12,150, 12,200 is a very strong resistance zone. But the way the market rallied last week clearly shows that yes, there is buying interest. On the downside, what we see is that somewhere around 11,950, 970, that's a very strong support zone. So ideally, we could see a pullback. So for Nifty, I would say the short-term trend remains positive. But yes, one needs to be, it's more of a trading range right now, 11,950 on the downside, 12,100, 150 on the upside. So it's more of a trading range. And as far as Bank Nifty futures is concerned, again, Bank Nifty futures, if we look at it, so what we are seeing here again is similar pattern on Bank Nifty futures. And for Bank Nifty, for any meaningful rally, it needs to sustain about 31,400 levels. But from a very intraday short-term perspective, there could be a bounce back, whereas support for Bank Nifty is seen around 30,800 levels.
Okay, well, moving on, let's also talk about a strategy that Navneet has for us. And if I'm not mistaken, he is going short on a Strangle. Navneet, can you tell us about how we are employing options?
Look, Agam, as we explained that basically markets are looking likely that stuck in the range, and it would take some time for the market to digest this kind of a big volatility that we've seen in the last two weeks or so. So to my understanding, selling on options would still be a profitable strategy, believing that basically there would be a theta decay as well as the vega decay in this week itself. So I'm selling in, I'm choosing a strike of 30,700 on the Bank Nifty on the lower side for the weekly expiry, that is of 13th of Feb, and simultaneously selling 31,400 calls on the upper side, basically giving a 700 points kind of a trading range, getting an inflow of almost 195 to 200 points on this strategy. I'm expecting that the markets are likely to exhaust in this range, and only thing that we need to be really watchful is basically once we started to break below 30,700 or basically 31,400, this premium is likely to expand, and one need to keep a strict stop loss in the entire premium of the strategy, somewhere in the range of 300 points. So one can expect the market to be in the range for the next 3 to 4 days, and that's where likely to eat up the time value in this options.
Right, so Navneet's advising a short Strangle on Nifty Bank for this weekly expiry of February 13. Navneet, what about individual stocks? Since you've also highlighted it's a stock-specific market now, what are the stock futures that you're laying your bet on?
Look, if you clearly watch on the kind of a move that we have seen on the pharma stocks, it's give me a feeling that the sector has seen a kind of a formidable bottom formation which has already been in place. Now there are stocks which are the rank outperformer within that baskets, likes of Biocon. It is giving a signs that it is breaking out with a good amount of volume and traction in the last couple of days. So Biocon is my first pick. It's looking likely that stock can head towards somewhere in the range of 335 to 340 range. So one can enter into the Feb futures market at this point of time in the range of 310 to 312. and keeping a downside stop loss of below 300 levels for the Feb futures. I'm expecting the stock to move towards the 335 to 240 range in the next coming week or so. And my second pick would be on the short side, since I've been talking about it would be a bipolar market whereby we're going to see a two-way kind of a move happening on the individual stocks. Metal seems to be that it is, after this big run up in the last week or so, it is giving away the kind of an steam that it has seen. So within that metal basket, it's Vedanta is a one stock whereby I've seen a kind of a rank underperformance in the overall picture, and it's looking likely that downward trajectory movement is likely to continue. So one can add into the short futures positions on Feb futures for Vedanta in the range of 142 to 143, and I'm expecting again a retest of somewhere in the levels of 133 on that, and I'm keeping a strict stop loss on the upside of somewhere into 148 range.
Okay, and what about you, Amar? Stocks that are looking interesting to you today?
Yeah, I would say the first stock to look at is Bharti Infratel. What we are seeing here in this particular stock is that the stock seems to be moving out of a consolidation. And also it seems to have formed a very strong base. So technically I would say on the short term, intermediate and the long term, there is some positive bias definitely on the stock, and the stock has a potential to rally higher. So at the current levels, one can look at buying. So between 248, 250 levels, one can look at buying Bharti Infratel with a stop loss of 238 and a target of 269 on the upside. And the second stock to look at is BPCL. Again, on the long side, what we are seeing in BPCL is that the stock managed to pull back sharply from almost 440 levels, currently trading around 492 odd levels. Technically, if you look at it on the short term as well as the long term charts, the stock remains positive. So this is one stock one can definitely look at. One needs to keep in mind that the financial results are on 13th Feb. However, the levels to enter the stock is somewhere around the current levels, 490 levels, with a stop loss of 474 and a target of 518 on the upside.
Okay, so those are some stock-specific ideas coming from our experts. Let's move away from that and also discuss stocks which are reacting to their earnings today. And of course, the Nifty counter, which is also your top Nifty gainer, that's UPL, which is doing well, though the stock's been still trading below all its key moving averages. It was up last week as well, and CLSA has raised the target after the strong quarter that the company has posted. Remember, the Arista synergies are reflecting in the earnings as well, and CLSA has raised the target to 770. Navneet, let me come to you on UPL. If I look at the return in last 1 year, it's not done too much, but the sort of momentum that we've been seeing in last few days, fundamentally now the numbers are looking good. The guidance has been maintained by the management. Would you take a bet, a trading bet on UPL from current levels?
Well, it's look interesting. The way the chart formation are forming, it's looking likely now that the previous bottoms are somewhere in the range of 500 to 530 range. That has been, been becoming a very strong support zone for that stock. But to my understanding, the best way to trade in this stock would be using a covered call kind of an options, whereby you see a limited amount of downside on the lower end. Similarly, after this 5 to 7% kind of a run up, the upside also looks to be somewhere in the range of 580 to 590 range. So I'll use a covered call kind of a strategy whereby one buy a futures and silent OTM call of somewhere into 580 range, giving it an inflow of almost 15 to 16 points. That can be a good strategy. But on the downside, if we keep a strict stop loss in the levels of somewhere into 540, and one can still ride the momentum towards 600 range in this stock. So the better would be the covered call kind of a strategy, and looking likely that its stock can head towards that 590 to 600 zone in this expiry.
Okay, can't not address Tata Steel because it's one of the top losers today on the Nifty 50. It's a stock which has been extremely active and also extremely volatile. It's fallen back below the mark of the 50 daily moving average, registering the second straight day of losses, and its first profit before taxation losses in 16 quarters. So certainly some concerns coming in here, and that's the reason why the stock's taking a knock of around 4%. Let's not forget that I'm sure it has some sort of an implication when it comes to, well, the Chinese markets and the kind of volatility that they've seen, commodity markets specifically. We're seeing an increase of as much as 11% in open interest. Amar, what do you do with Tata Steel now? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, looking at Tata Steel, what we are seeing in Tata Steel is that the stock did make a recent high of 487, and from there currently is trading around 452 odd levels. So technically, if you look on the charts, what we are seeing is that The weekly charts definitely remain positive, but the long-term charts still clearly show that higher levels will be sold into, and somewhere in the region of 490, 500, that's a very crucial and strong resistance zone for Tata Steel. So till the time we don't see the stock consistently trading above that level, I would say that the trend now could remain towards on the short side. On the downside, the stock has got good support. Somewhere on 28 Jan, it had made a low of 442. So ideally 440, 442 is going to act as an immediate level of support for the stock. Yes, if that is taken out, then the stock could retest its recent lows of 416.
Okay, that's Tata Steel for you, which is down about nearly 4% in trade. And remember, technically, when the metal stocks were moving higher, this was one of the top picks from many technical experts as well. All right, MGL is the other one, which posted its numbers. And not to forget how the gas distribution companies have been doing well in the last 2 or 3 months. A lot of brokerage notes coming out stating the gas demand could almost double in the next 10 years. Maybe the numbers have disappointed the street, have come in below what the analysts were penciling in. Revenues down 1% and profits, however, did see an uptick of about 25%. This year itself, the stock of MGL has risen about 10%. Navneet, we've seen some bit of OI build-up coming in today's session, and the stock is down about 2%. Do you use this as an opportunity to create a long position considering the stock was doing well, or do you see further downside?
Look, we have to understand that this is coming from a very strong performance in the last couple of months or so. So this stock has moved from almost 1,000 odd levels to almost 1,250 odd, and it has seen a mild correction. So to my understanding, after the results, it's looking likely that it can see some kind of a more profit booking on the lower side. I'm looking at the levels of somewhere near to 1140 to 1150 as an entry range. But overall, if I look out on a long-term charts, it's looking likely that buy and dip strategy would work on this stock. And if you're getting in an entry in that zone of 140 to 150, 1140 to 1150 range, it would be a kind of a good strategy to be in, and it looking likely that again the retest of that previous high somewhere in the 1240 is possible again in that stock once we started to see a bottom formation happening in the stock. So I'll wait patiently for an entry zone towards that level.
Okay, that's Mahanagar gas for you. And from there on, let's talk about well, a handful of queries that our viewers may have for us. And actually, before that, let me address one of the other 2 stocks which are also well buzzing in trade. And while we have spoken about a lot of banks at this point in time, if we can actually take up a bunch of other banks too, because we are seeing a lot of traction here. I'm going to talk about something like an Axis Bank. It's not doing as much in today's day of trade, but we do have a lot of, I would say, interest from our viewers when it comes to Axis Bank. And if we can pull up the last 3-month chart and take a look at how things are panning out for this one, it's one of those banks which has not been as much under pressure as some of its peers like IndusInd Bank has been. In the last 3 months, it has not been doing well, and it's clearly a chart which has been tough to trade. So Amar, if I can take this one up with you, where do you see Axis Bank going from these levels? How do you see it trading?
Yeah, looking at Axis Bank, I would say Axis Bank is one of the stock wherein you're seeing that for the last almost since I would say since October last year, it's been completely trading in a range. It did manage to make a high of close to 760 odd levels, but it's been unable to reach that level, and we are seeing that level has been tested or retested close to almost 4 to 5 times. So now that becomes 775, 765, I would say, becomes a very strong resistance zone for Axis Bank. First. Secondly, on the downside, we are seeing that, yes, the stock now has got a very strong support base somewhere around 700, 710 odd level. So it's completely in a range. And if you look at the long-term charts on the monthly charts, then you'll get the answer. Because if you look at the monthly charts, clearly shows that the stock isn't going anywhere. It's trendless. And also one of the daily indicators clearly shows that it is in a trendless phase. So I would say it's a range play for Axis Bank. Those who want to trade in a range, this is a good stock to trade.
Okay, it's a range play with regard to Axis Bank in case if you're taking any fresh bet here. No major build-up seen, at least from the future side. All right, let's start addressing queries then. Tarun Arora writes to us, and he wants a view on 700 put strike of Lupin, which is currently trading, I guess, around 18. I don't know if he's taken a position, but he's also indicated the premium at 18. Navneet, you gave a buy call on Biocon, and pharma as a pack, couple of stocks like Divi's, Biocon, we've seen them, inching higher in the last few sessions. But Lupin has been a laggard, I believe. It's not done too well. It's down today as well for the third straight session. What is your view on the 700 put strike, which is quoting a premium of 18 if somebody's taken a position here?
Well, to my understanding, it's been a rank underperformer in an entire pharma pack and within the sector which is performing well. And if you see a heavyweight stock being underperforming, normally you don't see a major pullback or a reversal kind of a trade immediately unless major news flows comes. So to my understanding, if I look at the charts very clearly, it's looking likely that this stock can continue to remain under pressure. However, once it started to trade below the 700 mark, but to my understanding, the momentum on the downside can still accelerate, and I can see the levels are somewhere into 660 odd coming into that stock. So a closing below 700 would clearly define that basically that can see a major weakness coming back in the stock, and I can see any upside likely to be capped in the range of somewhere into 720 to 725 range. So unless that has been taken out, it's been still being a long expiry. One can still bet on the short side of that stock, and keeping a strict stop loss on the upside unless the reversal comes above 720 zone. It can define that the reversals have started to happen in that stock, and to my understanding, one can wait for the levels of somewhere into 660 odd levels for booking a profit in the short side.
Okay, let's talk about a stock which has had a stellar in 2019, IGL, but it's looking at a little bit of a break, if I can call it that, because we have a viewer, Harshvardhan, who wants to know if it is a good idea to buy the 500 put of IGL. It's currently at 506. The put is currently trading at 11.3. Amar, what's your view on IGL? That's Indraprastha Gas. And would you buy the 500 put?
Yeah, I would say that the stock overall, the trend for the stock definitely remains positive and strong. Yes, on the daily charts, we are seeing some sort of bearish divergence, but I wouldn't want to go short in this stock currently, because the stock does have very strong support base coming around 500 odd levels.
Okay, support at 500 levels for IGL. Remember, with markets falling, you will see the stocks which were outperforming to witness some bit of profit booking, and that's exactly that we are witnessing for stocks like IGL. Pull up SPI as well. We've got a query coming in from Raj. He's bought 2 lots of February futures of SPI at 325, and I think he is making some bit of losses as the futures currently trade at a level of about almost 320. Navneet, what would you suggest him to do? He's bought at 325 and currently it's at 320. What are the charts indicating?
Well, the gentleman has already bought somewhere in the exactly at the kind of some kind of a resistance zone at 320 to 324 to 25 is a level which the stock has not been able to surpass that easily. So to my understanding, it's not showing that kind of a rank weaknesses in the current setup in the current correction in market. So to my understanding, if it can keep a stop loss of 316, I guess you can maintain, and you should look probably at an entry above the 325, or you should look towards that level to exit that stock. Unless it started to trade above the 325 zone, very crucially, it's looking likely that it can remain under pressure. But to my understanding, the downside is also restricted and to a level of 315 to 316 levels. So one can keep a strict stop loss 3116 and wait for an exit towards the 324 zone.
Okay, and from there on you talk about State Bank of India, which the spot price is currently at 319. We have a viewer.
We've done that. SBI has done.
All right, okay.
We can take Bank Nifty, I guess.
Yep, so well, we can take, yes, the Bank Nifty, of course, the February 31,000 call. Abhijit Ghate has shorted the Bank Nifty 31,000 call at 507. Please advise. He's sold it at around 507. It's currently at 480. So, well, okay. Let's see whether or not the profit can be booked at these levels or no. Amar, your view on this one? Would you, book profits? Would you ask him to book profits, or carry on the position? He sold the 31,000 call of the Bank Nifty.
Yeah, looking at Bank Nifty, I would say Bank Nifty is having very strong support somewhere around 31,000 levels or so. So ideally there can be a pullback from there, but he can hold on to his position towards 50-60 points lower. He can look at booking his position.
Okay, that's Nifty Bank for you. Just want to highlight few stocks. Z's down 5%. M&M, which came out with the numbers, did not look that great. There was some bit of margin expansion, but clearly I think the decline in volume growth has weighed on the numbers. So M&M down also about 5%. Tata Steel is also down 4% in trade, and you've got Voltas, which is reacting negatively. I think this one also came out with the numbers. So markets too, keep an eye on that one. Nifty is trading very, very close to that mark of 12,000. It's a psychological level. Let's see if that gets breached or not today, Agam.
Okay, well, take a moment to thank both our experts for joining us and taking us through their views on the markets. But don't forget to log on to our futures and options pages on BloombergQuint.com.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. Thanks a lot for watching, but stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint for more news and updates.